football's not that important really at the end of the day. However,
Not
the motor
really.
industry is. In Western Australia alone, there's more than 10,000 businesses employing more than 45,000 people for an annual revenue of around the $16 billion mark, and that's just here in WA. It's a very, very big part of the driving force of Australia's economy, and to tell us why, and more importantly where it's heading, Peter Fitzpatrick, CEO of the Motor Trades Association, joins us now. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Jason. Morning, Anita.
Good morning.
Always great to see you on a Wednesday morning.
Yes, it's
bright and
good
shiny.
to see you guys, and I love your clothes.
Thank you. I did make a special request for a jacket because I knew you were coming in, so the
You
Fitzpatrick
can.
jacket's been reborn.
Well
Very
done,
smart.
Ivana.
So,
Peter approves.
Now,
And as a Docker supporter, I'm sort of, I'm still in mourning, but anyway, we'll get there.
we're going to have to start getting some black armbands or something.
Well, I think the Dockers just seem to be able to find a new way every week of losing a game, don't they?
Snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Now then, Peter, obviously you're involved in the motor trades world, Australia-wide, obviously not just the Motor Trades Association here in WA. What's the big picture for the Australian motor industry at the moment? It sounds like it's healthy and growing.
Oh, it is growing, and the size of the industry, I think most people don't realise that it's the second largest economic force behind the resources sector in the nation, and the same in Western Australia. There are about 21.3 million people in Australia, and nearly 15 million vehicles, 14.8 million vehicles. Now, if you start looking at who can and who can't drive, it works out at probably almost one, or almost a bit more than that, one vehicle per person, because there must be people out there that have motorcycles as well as a car. There'll be people who drive a truck at work and have a car as well. So we're probably slightly over one vehicle for every person who's eligible to drive, which makes it a pretty big industry. And as you said, it turns over 158 billion nationally, so it's a huge chunk of the economy. And then if you throw the manufacturers in there, the manufacturing industry, we export somewhere around about $4.8 billion worth of product every year, which makes the car industry the biggest manufacturing export in Australia.
Is
That's
that
why
right?
the,
Okay.
well, it's not the biggest exporter, obviously, because the iron ore, if you dig it up, stick it on a ship, you're obviously going to make more money than having to make something.
Sure.
But in terms of manufactured goods, the automotive industry is the biggest exporter in the land as well.
And nationally, I mean, I spoke about 45,000 jobs in WA, but nationally over 300,000 people employed in the industry. So
Yes.
not only important for the dollars, but also important for our employment and just the day-to-day income of average Australians as well.
Yeah, and the retail side of it, which is the side that I really represent, and the manufacturers are the other side of it. We work very closely with one another, the manufacturing part of the industry and the retail side, which is all of the different businesses that my association represents, which is all the different dealers and repairers and service stations. And our biggest member turns over about $2 billion alone. That's the Automotive Holdings Group, which is a big company and is now national. But we certainly have a huge number of businesses here in Western Australia, about 7,000 of them, that turn over about $16 billion annually in WA. So it's a very big chunk of our economy. And I think people tend to forget that, and sometimes I have to remind politicians that the industry is pretty important to the economy, and they need to be a bit careful about how they tax us and take us into account in a lot of their decision making.
But what about, quickly then, you said it's important for our economy, but what about the environment with that many cars being on the road? Obviously that's a negative aspect to it as well, isn't it?
We're about to go through radical change there, Anita. I think we've discussed this in other segments, but the change is coming for smaller vehicles. We're heading to a lot more diesel vehicles. One manufacturer, Peugeot, now sells 57% diesel and a 43%
And
petrol.
they go these days. It's not like driving a diesel means
Yes.
driving a sluggy, smoky, gassy car anymore.
Well, a 2-litre turbocharged diesel will probably have the same performance, roughly, as your old-fashioned V8. So they certainly have changed quite dramatically. But so diesel is one area we're heading. Electric, the hybrid electric is going to be more and more of those because of the taxes we're going to have on fuel and taxes on higher emitting vehicles.
Is the government going to get more direct, do you think, Peter? I mean, allowing petrol prices, we're talking $1.54 in some parts of Perth today. which is ridiculous, really. Well, there's reasons behind it all, but is it going to get more direct? I mean, at the end of the day, the faster we use the oil, the more expensive what's left is going to be. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, exactly.
So therefore, is there going to be any serious attempt to force people away from V8s? Like if you've got a really good reason why you need to have a V8, you're towing a horse trailer, or you've got a need for all that grunt, you'll pay that extra money because you need it. Is it going to get that direct?
I think there'll be a point in time where the emission trading scheme that governments are going to introduce will start to impact very seriously on what people buy and the economy of vehicles. And you're going to start to see hybrid electric, as I said, probably full electric, and ultimately hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Governments are in a wonderful position, of course, because they have a complete monopoly. So what taxes they lose on the motor vehicle, and at the moment I think across Australia it's about 5.56 billion roughly, and I think it's 735 million in Western Australia. That's not counting petrol taxes, that's just taxes on stamp duty and registration and so on. But if governments start to lose that and they bring in an emissions trading scheme, guess what? They start taxing carbon, so they get another tax in anyway.
Sure.
So as they close one door, they simply open another. And I guess the trick will be is to try and balance that. And I think the real test for the new Labor government is how are you going to use those carbon taxes, particularly if it impacts, say, on manufacturing of vehicles here, because we make, in my view, probably too many 6 and 8 cylinder and big vehicles, and we should be looking at smaller diesel vehicles, hybrids and so on in Australia.
This was to be my next point. With an industry that's so vibrant and so vital, 300,000 people employed in the motor industry, obviously it's redolent upon the government. They have a built-in obligation to make sure that that's a strong, thriving business. Are the steps being taken now to ensure that we don't dig that hole of being an outdated automotive industry?
I think the retail side will probably survive quite well because people are still going to need to get vehicle serviced. It'll be a whole different industry. We'll have people servicing electric vehicles and a whole range of different types of vehicles. I think the area the government is probably...
more not undermining our manufacturing by...
Yeah, well, that's where I was heading. I think the manufacturers are the ones that... And as you know, the government at the moment has a review chaired by former Victorian Premier Steve Bracks, which is looking at manufacturing. Because if you undermine that manufacturing with taxing the types of vehicles that we're making, already we've gone from about 60% ownership of Australian vehicles to around 18%, and that's falling almost every year. So Australian vehicles are no longer a predominant force in our new car sales. Imported vehicles are from Japan and Europe in particular. So how do we protect that manufacturing base, and what sort of measures is the government, how much money are they going to throw at it?
Or should we?
Well, I think we do, because I think strategically we need to have some sort of manufacturing base. Otherwise, we're simply going to be people that grow things and stick them on a ship, or dig things up and stick them on a ship. I think if we're going to have a flourishing nation, we need to downstream some stuff, and I think we need to start manufacturing far more products in Australia. I know we can't compete with low labour rates when you start to talk about clothing and footwear and these sorts of things, but we are very good in Australia with technology, we're very good at IT, and I think the manufacturing side of the motor vehicle, which has got all these component manufacturers and a whole range of other people, I think we need to preserve that base for our own strategic integrity.
Makes perfect sense.
It does, and it'll keep the economy growing as well.
One last thing, and I guess it reflects on
Healthy.
fuel prices, 512,000 motorcycles. They've obviously getting a bit of a surge in popularity recently.
Yeah, I think it's the baby boomers, they've all sort of had a late surge. There's a lot of people, well, I guess there's two reasons. First is the fuel situation. You can drive to work a lot cheaper on a motorcycle than you can in a four-wheel drive, for example. And the second reason is there's a lot of recreational bikers out there now. People who have decided that as they reach 60, it's time they got the Harley out of the shed and went out on the road and showed everybody that they're really enjoying their life.
So you in a leather jacket, Pete, cruising down the road.
Well, I've got a wife who drives a Ducati, which 944. So
Nice one.
Impressive.
I play golf. I leave her to go out there and terrorise the roads.
Impressed, Kathy. Very impressed.
I am impressed, actually. Getting her on
Well
the
done, Mrs.
motorbike.
Fitzpatrick. We do have to leave it there, Peter. Thanks for once again enlightening us as to what's going on all around us that we should be more aware
A few
of.
facts and figures there I didn't know, which I'm actually quite surprised with.
I guess there's one scary one there. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
next time. $21 billion money borrowed to buy cars. But obviously we all need our cars. Just let's make our manufacturers and our government steer us towards the most sustainable option for the future.
Thank you, Peter, once
Yeah,
again.
my pleasure.
And that article will be up on our website, wakeupwa.com.au, or go to the MTA website for more information. We do have to go to a break. We'll be back with the ballet after this.